The reading this morning is from Revelation 21, verse 1 to 8. I remind you that this is the word of the Lord. A new heaven and a new earth. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away." He who is seated on the throne said, "I am making everything new." Then he said, "Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true." He said to me, "It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life. Those who are victorious will inherit all this, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. But the cowardly, the unbelieving, the vile, the murderers, the sexually immoral, those who practice magic arts, the adulterers and liars, they will be consigned to the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death."
So over this last term, we've been working through the first 11, 12 chapters of the Bible as we've looked at the origins of things. And there've been a lot of things as we've seen what it means to know God, to know the God who created the good world, to know the God who punishes sin and evil. Last week, as we came to the end of the series, we were reminded about the great promises that God made to Abraham, effectively promises to reverse the effects of the fall. He promises to make Abraham into a great nation, that his descendants will be a great nation. Promises to give them a land again, a land flowing with milk and honey. And that there'll be a special relationship with God and Abraham and his descendants. So rather being under judgment, they are under blessing, recipients of God's blessing and love. Effectively, as I said, this is promises to reverse the effects of the fall. Genesis 12 is promises for an undoing of Genesis 3. In Genesis 3, they were kicked out of the Garden of Eden. In Genesis 12, they are promised a land, a blessed, beautiful land. In Genesis 3, Adam and Eve are driven from God's presence, and they live outside the garden under God's judgment. But in Genesis 12, God enters into a special relationship with Abraham and his descendants. So from Genesis 3, it's judgment, but Genesis 12, the promise of blessing. Look at this verse from Genesis 17. We got it there, yes. "I will establish my covenant as an everlasting covenant between me and you and your descendants after you, for the generations to come, to be your God and the God of your descendants after you." It's a promise of a restored relationship between God and his people. The great preacher of the last century, John Stott, some of you will know him or may have read his books. He said that from Genesis on, the whole rest of the Bible is working out these promises in Genesis 12. And so today, I thought as we'll do a tack on to the Genesis series by fast forwarding all the way to the end of the Bible, where we see the fulfillment of these promises. And remember that these promises are for Abraham and his descendants. And Galatians chapter 3:29, as we looked at last week, shows that we are the true descendants of Abraham if we are trusting in Jesus. Galatians 3:29, "If you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. So as we look at Revelation 21, as we look at the fulfillment of these promises, if we are trusting in Jesus, then this is our future. This is our destiny. This is our final destination. So I thought I'd play a bit on the Genesis title, which was Origins for the series, and here, Final Destination. Revelation 21 and 22 are really fantastic chapters in the Bible. And if you're not familiar with them, I would challenge you to go and spend time in them. They paint a beautiful picture of what the eternal future will look like, what it will be like. And it uses very visual language. It takes some of the best that we have in this world to describe something that is far better than we can even begin to comprehend. So, for example, in chapter 22, it describes the roads in the new creation as made of pure gold, like pure glass. Now, that's not meaning there will only be gold roads in the new creation. Maybe it does. But it is taking the best that we can know and imagine in this world to describe something that is even better. These chapters show us the ultimate fulfillment of God's promises to his people. And John records this, showing us what a world free from sin and free from the effects of sin will be. The future event of the return of the Lord Jesus is the most important event that this world has to offer. There are so many other future events that vie for our attention and our affection, but they are only just a scratch compared to the return of Jesus. The ultimate destiny of this world is that Jesus is coming back, and when he comes back, he's going to usher in the new heavens and the new earth. So we must set our hearts on that. We must set our minds on that. We must think about it, ponder it, long for it. Revelation 21, we see the outworking of the reversal of the effects of the fall. Everything that went wrong in Genesis 3, everything that was promised in Genesis 12 is fulfilled in Revelation 21 and 22. After Adam and Eve were kicked out the garden, sin and suffering entered this world. Death entered this world. The good, the perfect world that God had created became stained with the effects of sin. Adam and Eve could no longer be in the presence of God, so they were driven out of the land. But in Revelation 21, we see the fulfillment of the promises of the things that are to come. We're going to look at 5 points, brief points from Revelation 21 that it pulls out there. So firstly, the first heavens and first earth, the first creation will pass away. This world has been wrecked with sin. The promise here is that the world will be changed. There will be a new world, a world free from sin. Look at verse 1. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. What is promising here is the order of the new the current heavens and the earth will be brought to an end. End of verse 4, it says, the old order of things has passed away. That is the sin and the judgment order of things. God is promising here to remove sin, to remove the effects of sin. Now just imagine for a moment, what would it be like living in a world where there's been no sin, where there is no sin? Just imagine what relationships with others will be like, and never being wronged or hurt or taken advantage of by someone else. Imagine never hurting or disappointing someone. Imagine never messing up again in your relationship with God. Just think what the news articles would be if there was no sin. I'm not sure we would have much news if you go and read the news articles at the moment. No wars, no corruption, no murder, no abuse, no theft, no slander, no gossip, and no hatred. Most of the articles, I guess, on our news feeds at the moment would just vanish, disappear. This heaven and this earth will pass away, and with it all sin and all the damages that sin has caused. Now, this is the vision of the new creation that John fleshes out for us here. The second point we see, end of verse 1, there will be no sea. Now, that might be a reason to cause you to panic and think, actually, I don't want to go there. Don't panic. Our understanding of sea is different to the biblical understanding of sea. For those of you who like long walks on the beach or an early morning surf, don't worry, you won't miss out in the new creation. In the Bible, the sea is a symbol of danger. It's a symbol of chaos, disorder, and uncontrollability. It's a symbol of a world that has gone wrong because of the effects of the sin. Remember Genesis 3, the earth has been cursed. The earth is not what it should be. So there's danger, there's chaos, disorder, uncontrollability. Biblically, the sea was seen as a big beast that could not be tamed or destroyed. In the New Testament, as we see some of the disciples of Jesus, hardened sailors, fearing for their life on the sea. Even the most trained would have faced fear. Today, we have a much more romantic view when it comes to the sea. But just think back to disasters that have happened in recent years. In the early 2000s or mid-2000s, the tsunamis that happened. Every year we hear of people being pulled out in riptides, unable to get back to shore and losing their life. Even today, the sea is a symbol of danger, chaos, and uncontrollability. The promise that is being made here when we're told that the sea will be no more is that everything in the new creation will be in perfect harmony with every other part of the new creation. There will be no evil, there will be no danger, there will be no uncontrollability and threat, no tsunamis, earthquakes, famines, violence, wildfires, droughts, the list could go on. All those things will be brought to an end as the new creation comes in and there's perfect harmony. Those things will be things of the past. No place for those things in God's new creation. So there will be no fear and no need to fear the danger of the world around us. Our third point, God and man. After Adam and Eve rebelled against God, they were kicked out of the garden. They were sent away from his presence. Because of their evil, they could no longer live in God's direct presence. They themselves were stained with sin. And they could not come back into an intimate, close relationship with the holy God. So a barrier was put between them and God as they were kicked out of the garden. But here again, in the new creation, we see a great reversal. Look at verse 2. I saw a holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God." The holy city, the picture there of the holy city, the new Jerusalem, is not as much a picture of a place, but a picture of a people. The bride of Jesus, his people coming to him. And that picture of being a bride, beautiful, pure, sinless, that is the picture that is held out for us. a people beautifully dressed for Jesus. The picture used here is the relationship between a husband and a wife. It's the closest, most intimate relationship that we have as humans. And what this picture is saying, that our relationship with Jesus in that future will be closer and more intimate than we even have with our spouse. Now, some might not have good experiences of marriage in this world, but that will be the perfect experience of an intimate relationship, far closer than any relationship you have in this world. Just think about having that type of relationship with God. Seeing him face to face, talking to him, knowing his love, better, closer, more intimate than any relationship you have now. Verse 3, it says that the dwelling place of God will be with man, that he will be our God and we will be his people. And again, this is a massive turnaround from Genesis 3. Kicked out of the garden, Adam and Eve banished from God's presence, but now fully restored. That's the promise to Abraham. That is the fulfillment in the new creation. We will walk with God, we'll talk with God. Sin now is a barrier between us and God. Yes, we've been forgiven, and spiritually we are right with God. But one day, when the new creation comes in, we will be physically sinless, and we'll be physically with God. Next point from verse 4 is that there will be no pain, there will be no death. Verse 4 is a verse that brings much hope in the face of suffering in this world. It's a sad reality that we live in a world that is marked by suffering. Since Genesis 3, pain and suffering has been part of the everyday life. But in verse 4, it says, he will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There'll be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. God is promising a complete reversal of the consequences of sin in this world. After Adam and Eve sinned, their rebellion in God led to this world being wrecked forever. God said to Eve in Genesis 3, with pain you will give birth to children. And to Adam, God said, cursed be the ground because of you. Through painful toil you will eat all the days of your life. Through human rebellion against God, pain and suffering came into this world. But God promises that one day there will be a day that he brings in his new creation where there will be no more pain, no more crying. We know this world. We know the pain, the suffering in this world. I don't know what pain or suffering you're facing at the moment or that you will face in the next weeks or months or years. But God promises that pain and suffering will be brought to an end when the Lord Jesus comes back. The saying goes, if you've not suffered, you've not lived long enough. That is true. That is what we experience. But what a joy and a comfort it is to know that pain and suffering is only temporary. Its days are numbered. Our final destination is a place where there'll be no pain, no suffering. God further told Adam and Eve that they'll not live forever. He said they would return to the ground, since from it they were taken. For dust they came, and to dust they would return. From that day, this world was covered with a shroud of sin and death, and none of us can escape death. It has become part of the world stained with sin. But God promises that in the new heavens, the new earth, death will be no more. Death will be removed. As we face hardship, as we face sorrow, as we face loss of loved ones, as we face the end of our own lives, we can know that death has no place in God's eternal future. There we will be freed from death, free from the pain and the suffering that death brings. Then finally, a gift and a warning. I finally want us to see two things about this new creation. Firstly, I want us to see that it comes as a free gift. In verse 5, we see that it is the one who is sitting on the throne who is making all things new. Look at verse 5. He who was seated on the throne said, I am making everything new. Then he said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. In verse 6, we see that it is offered to us without cost. He said to me, it is done. I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life. The only way that the consequence of our sin can be removed is if sin is removed, if sin is dealt with. Jesus came into this world to deal with sin. Jesus lived a perfect life. He gave his life on the cross to take our place, to take the judgment that we deserve because of our rebellion against God. As Jesus died, he rose again, showing that he has conquered death, that he's dealt with the consequence of sin, that death is no longer. And that gives us the certain hope that if we are trusting in him, we too will be raised from the dead and be part of this glorious future inheritance. And you notice there, it's nothing we can do to earn it. It's done by Jesus. He is the one who's making all things new. It is offered to us without cost. It is a free gift, a gift given to all those who are trusting in him. For those of us who believe, those of us who are trusting in Jesus, we can be sure that this future is our future, that this is our final destination, that the new heavens and the new earth will be our home for all eternity, where we'll experience the bliss of being in God's perfection, being in perfect relationship with him and with one another. But there's also a warning. Verse 8. But the cowardly, the unbelieving, the vile, the murderers, the sexually immoral, those who practice magic arts, the idolaters, and all liars, they will be consigned to the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death. The new creation is a free gift, a gift held out for all of us, but not a gift that everyone will receive. There's a strong warning in these verses that some here will still face judgment in hell. There are those who do not believe in Jesus, who do not believe, have their trust in him to deal with the problem of their sin and rebellion. As we read this description, we recognize that some of these things are true about all of us. But the thing that marks out the two different groups is trust in Jesus. Are you living with Jesus as your Lord? Are you living with him as your Savior? In verse 7 it says, those who are victorious will inherit all this, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. The victorious in Revelation are those who trust in Jesus, and those who keep on trusting in Jesus. If you're not a follower of Jesus, if you're not trusting in him, then these promises aren't for you. This future's not for you, but it can be. It can be if you put your trust in Jesus. It's not too late. Jesus hasn't come back, but he is coming back. This is the sure and certain future of this world. If you turn to Jesus today, then this can be your future. This can be the hope of living in the new creation, free from sin and free from all the damage that sin has caused. As we live in this world, we must remember the future. We must remember the final destination. We must remember where we are heading. And that future must shape how we live in this world today.